Hi, morning. Okay, you've got three of us. I'm Cheryl. I'm the co-director of Action Space. Lisa is one of our team of 12 freelance artist tutors, or artist facilitators, and Thompson is one of our artists. I'm going to start with just a very general overview of Action Space, and I'm going to keep my bit as small as possible because what Lisa and Thompson have to say is infinitely more interesting. Okay. Sure. Action Space was actually launched in the 1960s by two ladies who were really fed up with the institutional nature of provision for adults with learning disability, working specifically with adults because there was some sort of creative provision up through school, but the moment you got out of school, you were either stuck in a day center or an institution or a home or something like that, and they just thought that was ridiculous. The reason it was called Action Space is because they used to go into community centers or wherever and set up a really wonderful creative environment that people could come to, which was an action space. And they used to do all sorts of creativity, so there'd be performance and dance and music and everything, and the idea was that people could just come however many times a week, have lots of fun, be creative, do something stimulating and challenging, and get out of their day-to-day lives. In 1984, one of the two ladies moved north to Yorkshire, and she took half of the company with her and formed Action Space Mobile, which exists in, I can't remember, Bradford, Bradley, wherever, North Yorkshire, and it's thriving, doing really well. They do a lot of performance, they travel. In fact, they had a book that was out last year. Sadly, we don't really have many links with them anymore. The half that stayed in London called itself Action Space London and formed a registered company and a registered charity and started to organize a little bit more. Continued to developing what it was doing, and then started to bring in a lot more visual arts, which they found people really reacted to quite well. So in 2004, they decided to approach the Arts Council England for funding, and with advice, and also because it was the way they're going, decided to concentrate on the visual arts. Mostly for three reasons, one of which was that it was an area of particular specialization to us. Secondly, because there were slowly becoming other companies in London that were working with adults with learning disabilities. None of them were doing visual arts at that point. So we thought that this was particularly our thing, but also because I think we all felt really strongly that as we were working with a lot of people who were either nonverbal or for whom verbal communication was really difficult, yet had to exist in a verbal world, the opportunity to express themselves visually and actually to produce something that they could show people and that they could look at was just fantastic, and people were really thriving and benefiting from it. So we decided to concentrate on the visual arts. We do two things really, one of which is to develop projects and opportunities for adults with learning disabilities to participate in the visual arts. And then the second stream of what we do is really about supporting artists with learning disabilities who want to develop a professional career and sort of really working to change the contemporary art sector in London and in the UK so that they can fit in. And I really loved what you said about exhibitions where people were just showing their work and there was no conversation about disability, it was just showing it. And we have a lot of conversations when we put work out for exhibitions about whether we should give all of that background or whether we should just put the work out there. Because to be honest, a lot of our work it's just good. It really is. That's all there is to it. We run two studios in London. And neither of them are even vaguely the size or the scale or the equipment here. Lisa is not going to be able to go back because she's just seething with jealousy. And we talked quite a lot. I would love to be able to do this for our artists because I think what you do here just really treats the people you work with seriously, gives them the space and the equipment, and just says, you know, you're doing this, and I'd love to be able to do this, and hopefully someday this is where we'll go to. At the moment we have 2 small studios, one in South London and one in Central London. The thing that is good about them is that they're both within mainstream arts complexes, so we benefit from working alongside other professional artists, being able to be part of their open studios. When dealers come in, when curators come in, they see us along with everyone else. We have them wandering in and out of our studios, and it's, you know, part of the whole continuum of being a professional artist, which is really important to us. We work with about 65 core artists on a weekly basis in what we call the Studio Project. Sadly, most of them only come 1 day a week, but it is a full day. It's a good 6 or 7 hour session. There's up to 8 to 10 in a session, and they're all facilitated with wonderful facilitators like Lisa, who work with them all on a one-to-one basis and really challenge them and encourage them to try new things and to really develop what it is they want to do. Then we have a flock of wonderful volunteer studio assistants who work under people like Lisa's direction, where they can work one-to-one and sort of really thread things what they want to do. And the thing that's really good about the volunteer program is that that's where we get our next generation of artist tutors from. So at this point, all of our artist tutors started with us as volunteers and then sort of got into our way of working. And I have a feeling Lisa's going to say a lot about our way of working, because we do struggle with support workers coming in and new volunteers coming in who have this sort of old-fashioned view that, you know, you have to do everything and you have to tell people what to do. And we do a lot to break that down and say, no, you need to step back and look at what they're doing and look at how you support them, because actually they're more talented than you in most cases. I say that quite a lot, don't we? Like, go with it. The bulk of the people we work with, probably about 80% of them, I mean, because we work with them as artists, we don't know what their diagnosis is, we don't talk about that, we just get on with it. Having said that, about 80% of the people we work with would probably be classed as having severe to profound learning disabilities. About 7% are nonverbal or have very limited verbal skills. Probably a good 40% have challenging behavior and have been excluded from other projects. I'm really happy to say that we've never excluded anyone. We trip over ourselves not to have to exclude anyone, and to be honest, we have people who come to us with 2 or 3 support workers because we've been told that they're just such a problem. We never see any problems. Because again, I keep thinking, you know, if you're an artist and you need to make art and you're not making art, well, you probably have challenging behavior too, really. So I'm not changing the pictures. Where am I? Yeah, so that's the Studio Project. Yeah, we work with, as I said, about 65 really fantastically talented people. Lisa will tell you in detail about the group that she works with. Everyone does different things, and we support them in doing different things. A lot of my job is about finding opportunities for them to show their work, professional development opportunities. We do a lot, everything we do is around partnerships. We work with partnerships from the learning disability sector to recruit and support artists. We work a lot in partnership with people from the contemporary art sector just to access opportunities for people. Our South London studio has been going the longest, and Charlotte Hollinshead, who is absolutely brilliant, who's our artist facilitator down there, has been working with Action Space for about 17 years. Most of the people down there she's been working with for a good 12 to 14 years. Jennifer from Outside In visits quite a lot, and she will tell you that there are some amazing people in that studio who are just completely, their work is breathless. One of the things that group has devised are what we call one-day live art events, where we set up in spaces. They create a space with all of their artwork, and then they invite other people to come in and make work with them. And you can see some of the examples here. They're really completely crazy days. We usually film it in stop-motion animation, and then usually at the end of the day, whatever they've created, which really, we use a lot of found materials. There's a lot of throwing wool around, throwing toilet paper rolls around, anything we can find. And then usually at the end of the day, we end by just destroying the whole thing. People can take away bits if they want, and then we usually have a session at the end where everyone just watches and comments on and reflects on what they do. And then a lot of our artists use that as creative inspiration and take that back to the studio as well. We also do outreach projects. Because we recognize that our studios are, we try to be as accessible as possible, but there is small, old studio buildings. The Cockpit Studio, the central London is on a first floor. We have problems with wheelchair access, and some of the facilities like hoists and things like that, we just don't have. So we work with day centers where we have a range of projects called Connecting Through Art, where we go off and we work in a day center with their people there. And those sessions can be absolutely crazy. We usually do them over a year. We encourage them to do whatever they want to make art, but they're very active sessions. You'll see the one there. I think we had worked over weeks where they made these huge sheets where they put their artwork on, and then we rolled it up and we had everyone rolling around in it. I remember one of the groups did a whole murder mystery sort of film series where if you went and visited them, you had to lie on the floor and have your outline traced around you, and then you had to come up with a whole plot about how you were murdered, and then that got taken into the film, and yeah, it was really crazy. What I've done now. We also run young people's projects. What we would ideally, in fact, we're about to open 2 new studios, one in East London and one in northwest London, in which case we will be sort of dotted around London. One of the big problems we have is that London's a big city and transport is an absolute nightmare, and facilities for changing over support workers and things like that. So what we're hoping is that by the end of the next 3-year period, we'll be able to work with people right across London, and what we'd like to have in each area is a series of studio projects, a complex needs project in a day center, and then a young people's project. Young People's Project pick up the young people just as they're coming out of school at around 18 or so when they're looking for something. They serve the purpose of giving them sort of a bit of a social group through the transition into adult life, but also introducing them to an art practice that is their own. And Lisa's actually picked up some of the young people that have just come out of a Young People's Project into one of our studio projects, and often what we have to do is spend an awful lot of time unteaching them what they've learned in school, because they come in thinking we have to draw a portrait and it has to be like this, and now we have to do that, and we spend a lot of time saying just throw that away, don't do that, and do what you want. But out of those, we've been able to find some people who are really amazing, and who we're trying to encourage them for the idea that, like everyone else, if you think, well, I'd like to be an artist, you can do that. You don't have to go work in a cafe or whatever. You can just come and be an artist. What I've done is I'm just going to do an overview of a couple of the people that we work with that aren't in Lisa's group that I just wanted to tell you about, and then Lisa's going to tell you a little bit more about her 2 groups that she runs. The first person is Tom. Tom actually now comes to us 3 days a week because he's been with us 1 day a week, and he's again someone, he tried going to some of the courses at college, the specialist courses at colleges and things like that, and they decided that they couldn't cope with him, so he's been excluded from virtually everything. Heaven knows why. He's the most amazing artist. We never have any problems at all with him. Tom first came to us, he used to make really angry circles all the time, and he's someone that has to be drawing all the time. No matter where he is, he finds a pen. If he doesn't have paper, he'll draw all over his hands. And when he first came to us, all of his support workers said, don't let him draw circles. He's really obsessive about drawing circles. And then we figured out that possibly the reason he was drawing angry circles is because people weren't letting him draw circles. We do that a lot. So we just gave him a pen and said, draw circles. So he drew and drew and drew circles, and then eventually got bored of drawing circles. So the circles became wheels. Then he looked around and realized that everyone else was using colors. So the wheels became cars, which then were in colors, and then the cars were on streets, and then the streets had buildings, and then there were all these people that were in the streets. And now Tom does these amazing drawings where basically he looks at a scene, he deconstructs it, takes out the bits that he's interested in, and they become the sort of the main part. And I'll show you, we did a project with Camden Art Centre, which is sort of a big gallery in London. And Tom decided he was going to do a series of portraits. So what you've got there are actually small A5 portraits that all were shown on a wall. And he basically just took a photograph of everyone who was involved in the project, all the other artists, all the facilitators, everyone at Camden Arts Centre, and produced this series of drawings. And the one on the left is him. And he was wearing a stripy t-shirt. And he obviously decided that the thing that was really interesting was that he had a stripy t-shirt. And you can see that that sort of takes over the whole thing. And there's one, oh, I'm the top left there, that was me. And I was actually wearing all black that day. And just before he took my portrait, he decided I looked really boring in all black. So he put a little blue scarf around my neck. And then when he was drawing my picture, he obviously decided that the point was that the only thing that was interesting about me was that I had this scarf that he had put on me. And what you can't see on my hand, I have this really big ring on. So when you look at the portrait, mostly what you see is this scarf, which actually was only about that big, and my ring. And he recently, we submitted his work, a group of artists did a project around North London, and we submitted his work again without saying anything about his learning disability. We just submitted his work, and he was selected, and he created a series of images of this area in North London that was shown in a collective of artists, which, you know, was amazing for him. Abu is in the same group as Tom, and this is from the Camden Arts Centre project, and I wanted to show this because, again, we have a small studio and we're very limiting, and in working in partnership we were able to work with them in their huge, wonderful gallery space. And Abu, who we struggled to find what his practice was really was, suddenly went wild and created this enormous piece, which he just absolutely loved. And, you know, if we hadn't done the partnership, we'd never have found that because we just don't have the space. And these are two very, very large pieces by Abu. The one on the left is a textile piece, which is currently in an exhibition at the Tower of London. And this piece actually was sold to a collector at one of our open studios. So, you know, it's great. This is Naina. Naina, who Jennifer knows extremely well. Naina is from the South London studio. She's been working with Charlotte for about 14 years, and she is amazing. She is very profoundly autistic, completely nonverbal, and really a force to be reckoned with. If she's on a mission, everyone just moves. But, you know, the thing is that we get used to that, and what's really great is that she's in a group of about 8, a couple who are quite frail, and everyone just knows, well, if Naina needs to move, you move, and she gets by you. Naina does 3 areas of work. She makes a lot of these little things that she binds, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger. This was a project we did in a shopping mall where we took over an empty unit in a shopping mall. Charlotte just brought a lot of Naina's work with her, gave her a lot of tape, and we get through a lot of tape, like masses of it, and she just binds it all together, and then she binds in other people's work. In fact, in the shopping center, she bound all around the security doors. It was crazy. And then what they did after that, Charlotte and Naina cut all the work up to take it back to the studio. Naina likes to revisit her work, so she would revisit, and where these came from were the pieces that came back that she then worked on over and over and again. And all of these pieces still exist, but in completely different form, because every now and then she'll discover them again and start working on them again. And in fact, some of them we were sending off to an exhibition, and we were wrapping them in like foil, not foil, in plastic to send to an exhibition, and Naina thought that was a really great idea. So some of them now have these sort of plastic skins over them, and it's really awful because when we send them out we have to say to people, well, that one you can cut the plastic off of, but that one you can't cut the plastic off of because that's part of the piece. And they've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, as you can see. Then she had a body of work which was about taping things and altering books, and that piece there was, we put a plastic sheet up in the corner of the studio for her to do these onto, but she sort of spilled off of it and up, and eventually we couldn't get it off the wall, and it did grow and grow and grow, and then eventually it was painted over, and sadly we had to take it down and take it apart, but she's now starting to bind that up and make that into something as well. But most recently, I think a lot of her work is around circular motion. And recently she started doing these paintings, and they're all on ordnance survey maps, so they're quite big. And there's a whole art about how she does it too, because she's in the corner of the studio. She works on 2 at a time in different colors, and she does this huge action where she sways, and there's an amazing sound that's like really mesmerizing when she did it. And 2 of these pieces have just been, Studio Voltaire, which is where our studio is based, is quite sort of a prominent members studio complex, and they have people who, ex-studio holders who include some of quite important contemporary artists now. And once a year they have a member show where they get about 4,000 submissions from all over the UK. And Nana's just had 4 pieces of those, which were just framed up in rather huge size and shown in the current studio member show. And again, we submit their work just as these are artists who are doing work. There's no explanation with it. And we do traditionally get selected, and Nana often gets selected. And then final, is Jennifer's favorite person. Nigel Kingsbury, who has been coming to us again for about 12 years. Nigel came to us creating these wonderful mythical drawings. Nigel has an obsession with women, particularly with Jennifer at the moment, and created the most beautiful drawing of her, which I think is hanging in your home at the moment. And we've just submitted to the Royal Academy summer shows, so fingers crossed we might be borrowing it back from you. Nigel was a winner of Outside In's last national prize, and therefore had a solo show at Pallant House Gallery. He was also selected for your drawing for the subconscious, Outside In's drawings for the subconscious exhibition, and then from that was selected from the 6 artists there to have a solo show at the Julian Hartnell Gallery. And from that, 6 pieces of his work were bought for the Museum of Everything collection. He also has a piece in the collection of a prominent American curator that we're not allowed to name, which is really frustrating. But all I can say is that they have a house in Martha's Vineyard where Michelle and Barack Obama go all the time and see the piece on the wall. Is that close enough? Can I say that? You know, Jennifer's been amazing championing Nigel. His work is all over the place. He continues to create. The only thing we do for him, Charlotte always says we're slightly pimps, because what we do is just find lots of pretty ladies for him to draw, and he never fails to deliver for us. So that's just, and I could go for, you know, because we've got 65 of them, that's 5. I could go for hours on the wonders. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Lisa. Lisa runs 2 of our groups, and I'll let you talk a little bit now.
I'm quite new to this talking, so people not here. Oh, right, okay. Yes, hello. So I put this one up. So pretty short as well. This piece was the last time I was in Glasgow, which was in 1998, when I was a part of an exhibition called Chocolate, which Laura knows very well because she organised and curated it. So it was lovely meeting you again yesterday. And that's just to say, I'm a practicing artist. And I also am an artist tutor that works in adult education, usually at the foundation level of art. I became a volunteer in, I think, 2006 with Action Space, with Thompson's group, when I was really, and I was really unsure of what Action Space actually did. I was actually doing a art psychotherapy foundation at Goldsmiths, and I needed some working hours for the course. But actually, when I started volunteering for Action Space, I really enjoyed how they worked, and I loved the approach of Action Space, much more so than then thinking about the art psychotherapy side. I think I saw raw talent that was free to create, and people with ideas being formulated rather than being compromised or overanalyzed. So I sort of ditched the art psychotherapy for me and carried on working with Action Space. And I really found that it was artists creating from the heart, and artists creating because they wanted to create. My working approach with the artists is I've been an artist facilitator for the past 7 years, and I've been given many different groups and many different courses to help run. Most of them are about using my teaching experience at the foundation level to create serious resolved art practices for people. I try and work in a very personal approach, so I work with individuals throughout the group, and I help to guide and formulate and build their own ideas and art practices at their own pace and their own rhythm. I try and teach them sort of as if they are at art college. You know, for me, in an art college background, I like to treat people as if they're artists coming to college. I want to give them some skills, I want them to learn new things, I want them to see their work as an interesting body of work that is formulated with a narrative for their work. You know, for me, I always work with a narrative. There's always a story behind something. There's something why you're making the work. And I think, especially with the people I have now, I just want them to really see what's important about it to them, and then lead it through, and then show other people that. Oh, sorry. There you go. Right. And it's really, as you said, Jennifer and I were talking yesterday, it's getting away from the old style day centre approach and trying to give people sort of independence in their own practice. They find their own materials, they decide what they want to do, we sort of talk about it, and then I try and get them to actually go off and do their own work. Do have a few problems with people coming in who basically say, no, but I want to help them do their work. And I'm saying, well, I've spent the last 7 or 8 years trying to get them to do their own work, so, you know, please let me. And it's really giving them the voice through their own artwork. And I think having regular exhibitions really helps those in the group, but also helps the people who don't exhibit so much, because they suddenly want to have an exhibition of their own. And quite often people come up to me saying, well, Thompson's going to Glasgow, so when am I doing something? So I think that's really good, because I think that really inspires them and gives positive achievements and confidence, I think, to go further. Working with Action Space has impacted on me, because I think it pushes me to make my own art. I don't know if any of you are being at art college, you were making your own work, I was exhibiting, then I had a family, and I started teaching. And I find it difficult to make my own work, but actually seeing the talent of the people I'm working with, and seeing the energy and the drive and the ideas, makes me think, gosh, I should be working as well. So I try and make work, sort of do an exhibition once a year. It makes me more reactive to decisions and just saying, just go for it, rather than dismissing ideas in my own head before I've even made the pieces of work. So I'm less overanalyzing, I don't censor as much, and it gives me the freedom to create. Which leads nicely on to Andrew here, who is an amazing artist, someone I know that Laura knows now. And basically he is a delight to work alongside. And I say work alongside because you can't work with him, because he just creates in his own way. And you sort of, you watch, you listen, and you learn, and then you can come in and help suggest some ideas. Andrew came from one of the young people's groups, and sort of came up through that. And initially he found it quite difficult to fit in. Actually, I'll say how he works first. He now, been with us for 4 years. He comes into the studio, hello! And so to everyone else's delight of kind of, oh, here he is. He is the youngest of our people in the group as well. And he buzzes excitedly around the studio with enormous energy, which is great for everybody else, really. And he gains inspiration through the things he sees in the workshops, in the studios. So he sort of creates, he just picks things up, walks around, dances around. Maybe he creates initial drawings to start with, and then he starts cutting them up. And then he maybe goes to find a bit of cloth and adds the cloth to the drawing. Maybe hears a sound and then finds something that goes with the sound. Or maybe someone said something and he thinks, ah, I like that. And so sort of goes off and uses that word as well. So basically anything to hand, he makes things from. So quite often we go skip hunting, which is quite difficult in central London because people like to take it away quickly, so we have to be quite quick, and we're sort of there taking bits of wood and any other bits of foam or something that we find.
In a very health and safety conscious way.
Well, yes. I don't think we're thinking that way. But he has a very instinctive way of working, and he really knows, he has an image in his mind of what he's going to create, and he just works in his own way. He doesn't need people necessarily to work with him at all. He just sort of pulls things together, a bit like Naina. And his artwork is very much, it's hand woven, he constructs it by hand, he sews everything together, he ties everything together, rarely uses nails or glue, luckily for the group, because when he did use some nails they were all really cross, so I'm telling him to shut up. But actually his work is very much, it's handmade, it's really strong, but there is a definite delicacy of the handmade, crafted nature by the use of the materials and the way he's put it together. He's also, so he makes huge sculptural objects that he sort of just adds things onto, and then wants them to hang from the ceilings or spin around, which he's able to do as well. But he's also very much, for me, a performer. He likes his photograph being taken wearing his pieces, which you saw just beforehand in there. He likes to make people, because he responds very much to people, and sort of they're almost his family, and people that he knows in his life. But here we have a book he's made. He's also very much, he likes telling and writing stories. He can't write well, so we sort of sit down and he tells me this long story, and he becomes more animated as he's telling it, and I have to write every word down. 7 pages later, I'm saying, "You sure this isn't the end of the story?" "No, there's more to say." And he adds songs into the stories and sort of dances around a little bit as well. And this book came very much from a story that he was telling, and the book is a child's book to go with another piece of artwork that he's been doing as well. So he always makes a collection of work, and they always have a narrative around them, and everything goes together, and it's all important that it goes together. This book was exhibited in the Shape Open exhibition, which toured around
London, England.
And is one of his very loved pieces. Here you can see he's sort of got leaves around, but he said their mouths speaking the words as well. Oh, sorry, keep going. Oh, there we go. And he creates dance floors. He's created these pods where he's made recordings that have to go inside the pod, so you have to put your head in the pod and then listen to him singing and telling stories as well. And he very much likes showing the whole group his work and getting everyone to look and take part. And for him, very much, he couldn't speak when he first came to us, so he's only been speaking for a while. So for him, it's very important that his voice gets heard, and he always asks when his next exhibition is, and he needs to tell his story to his audience. And he's doing residency and
at a special school in North London, where he's going to be working with some of the students from the school. So he's going to be in there 1 day a week making his work, but also encouraging the students to come in and work with him, so that they sort of get a glimpse at what they could do next.
Yeah, I'm going to, yeah. Tony, here, is a fantastic guy that I've been working with for a long time. I'm just wearing one of his lovely pieces of artwork, modelling it. And these were made for the Lord Mayor's show. Tony, when I worked with him, he was creating colourful patterns, but he loves to talk and he has an opinion on absolutely everything. It's his human philosophy, and it's also his sort of idea about how life should be as well. So we used his artwork, really, we drew words into his artwork, and we started creating films and t-shirts that were his thoughts of the day. One of his thoughts of the day films was in the Shape Open as well, as with Andrew, and also in the Shapes Westfield Gallery on a rolling continuum He's also made postcards as well. Some of them are rude, some of them are not.
He likes to swear a lot.
He likes to swear. Yeah, exactly. And one of these postcards I think he sold at the Tate Travelling exhibition recently, which he was delighted about.
I think one of Tony's, are you going to say, my quote from Tony, because Tony... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, these are a few things that Tony said to me. He said it means so much to him to say these words. He doesn't mind what people have to say about it, but he wants people to see it. He wants people to see it because words are important, and it gives him a voice in society. And at the Lord Mayor's show, we did the whole thing around the Lord Mayor's show, was around his work, and he was really proud how many people listened to him, and he felt special as it was about him. And he said, don't ask me, just read it. That's the kind of person he is. What was the last? And if it's wrong, I'd like to be told. I'm only human after all. There we go.
So we're running really over, but we'd like to we were going to end with just a conversation with Thompson, because you've probably all seen his exhibition downstairs. So if you will just bear with us for 5 minutes, we'll do a conversation with Thompson. Thompson's been with us for about, how many years?
15 years.
15 years now, yeah. And Thompson was part of the Creative Minds conference in Brighton last year, which was pulling together artists from all fields with learning disabilities and then getting them to talk about where they are and where they wanted to go. And for that, he created a body of work called Postcards from Brighton, which was the first, which then inspired Postcards from Glasgow. So I don't know if Lisa wants to join us, but we were just going to do a quick conversation with him. So, while I'm doing this, Thompson, do you want to introduce yourself and say a little bit about your family and where you live?
Hello everyone. I'm Thompson. I live with my mum and my 2 brothers in North London. No one else does art. My family. I like visiting galleries and museums, meeting new people. People tell me I'm good at listening.
Let's use the slideshow. So I'm just going to try to get it up as a slideshow. There we go. Okay. Tell us a little bit about how you started making art.
Well, I started doing some drawing at school when I was 12 years old. I was drawing at home all the time because I barely went out, so my mum encouraged me, but anyway. But yeah, I started drawing at home all the time, mainly drawing things from TV, magazines, cars, people in films. I remember on one occasion I was drawing people from American Werewolf in London because I liked the situation, I liked the location, and thought the story was unusual. I went to John Keats School in Swiss Cottage, London, where my art teacher spotted my work and thought it was unique. It encouraged me to do more drawing.
What training have you done?
Well, after school, I went to Kingsway College to do a life skills course. I was referred to Action Space by my social worker who knew I was interested in art. I've been coming to Action Space for 15 years and I enjoy drawing and painting.
Why do you make art?
I do it out of enjoyment. Because it's something I show a passion for. And to have the opportunity to show work and gain recognition and just make people around me very proud, like my family and friends, people like that really.
And what inspires you?
Going to museums and galleries, enjoying paintings in my sketchbook and reading about other artists and learning how they work.
And what artist, whose work inspires you?
The work that inspires me, let's see, is Frank Albach. I like his work. He paints pictures of buildings. They're not exactly accurate, but they're abstract, which you'll see in my pictures downstairs. But anyway. I remember mixing colours. I remember sitting. I remember reading at Tate Modern about how he mixes the colours. And Anthony Caro with how he does sculptures in bright colours.
Okay. Now, Thompson's first solo exhibition was Postcard from Brighton, which he did for the Creative Minds. So while he tells you just a little bit about it, I'm just going to show you some of the photographs.
Okay. It is about places seen around Brighton from a visitor's perspective. It was done for the Creative Minds Conference in Brighton in March last year. The exhibition was shown in Brighton, in the Brighton Dome over March last year. The main picture is called Brighton Station.
That's that one.
I painted that because I liked how it looked, the architecture, and I was fascinated by it.
One of the things I noticed about your work is that you have a lot of heavy black lines and bold colours. So it seems to me that colours are very important to you. Tell me a little bit about how you choose your colours.
I just tend to paint and go allowing what colours that come to me at the time.
Okay. And do you ever make mistakes?
I sometimes do that. I sometimes change colours if it doesn't look how I want it to look. I often change a piece in one sitting, then go back and work on it again. Sometimes when I add things like the white lines, the original colours don't look right anymore.
And tell me about the heavy black lines. Why the heavy black lines?
Oh, to make the image stand out, and some of the paints I've experimented with using white line, highlight certain areas. I'm not sure if I think this works.
So let's now skip ahead to Postcards from Glasgow, which is your second solo show, which is downstairs.
Yeah.
Tell us about that exhibition.
Okay. It is that I did not visit Glasgow first. All the sketches were done from images on the internet, not photographs I had taken.
Okay, tell us a little bit more, particularly how you approached it differently from Postcards from Brighton.
Well, I had to do more research, and I had no image of Glasgow in my head to work from, which made it harder. I think I used more texture in my work. This came from the first painting that I did, which is of the whiskey distillery, creating the water effect to make it different from the building. Also this time I thought more about the weather, whereas in Brighton, in the Brighton paintings I did not. It seems to me that the weather is more changeable in Glasgow, but of course I have never been here before, so I don't know that for sure. The colours are a lot brighter. I thought a lot more about how I wanted to look. I wanted to put the colours together. Also, the light source was also where the light source was. Maybe it is because the colours on the internet are slightly different than in real life. Because I've never been to Glasgow, I was working on my imagination a lot more.
Okay, and yesterday Lisa and you and I tried to get out and about and look at some of the city. Sadly we didn't see a lot of the places that you had painted, which we're going to try and do today or tomorrow. But you happy with the result?
Yes, I'm very pleased with the result, with the way this group of painters have turned out.
Excellent, thank you. Okay.